What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Trainman Report. This is the 12th episode. Today we have Val Keszey. How do you say your last name? I'm not really sure.
Keszey.
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 Keszey. She's
Keszey.
joining us today, and she's going to be sharing her story with us, and we're going to talk about some spicy NDG topics like the Terrebonne Bike Path, because, you know, it doesn't die for all the people out there that are unhappy. And that's because both sides are extremely passionate and leveraging democracy and doing what we're all supposed to be doing. Whether or not we all agree this is the topic to focus on, it's not the point. This is civic duty in action, and I think that regardless of your politics in this situation, it's something that should be commended and supported. And if we're going to be a community show, I think we should platform people who are advocating for what they believe in. And honestly, I don't really know what Val represents, and I don't know all of the things that are going to be impacted by it, so I'm looking forward to hearing what she thinks. Yeah. Oh,
Hi,
before we
guys.
really get into it, like, comment, subscribe. All you people watching live, we are on YouTube. Make sure to go over there and subscribe so you can watch it easy after the fact. And we're going to have all the episodes on Spotify and all the podcast networks as soon as possible. And appreciate everyone watching it. And let us know who you want to see in future episodes. And more importantly, leave your comments and we'll make our best efforts to answer you in the live show. And appreciate you.
You know, Holden,
What's up, Andrew? I see you out there.
that's got to be the best intro you've ever done, by the way. That was
Really good.
it was good. Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Righty. So here we are. NDG. How are you today? It finally got cold, so I'm feeling better about that because it's supposed to be cold.
Mhm.
And we have the pleasure of having Valerie Keszey. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
100%.
And NDG,
Great.
who, believe it or not, lives on Terrebonne, right? I live on King Edward. I'm close to Terrebonne. I'm not far from Terrebonne. And Terrebonne is a rather long street. It has quite a bit of institutions on it. St. Monica's is on it. The new Mackay Center is there. It moved there, brand new building. There's a lot happening on Terrebonne. I think
It is a nice building.
yeah, it is very nice. They did a good job with it. I remember the old Mackay building near on Prudhomme, and I remember I went there a couple of times as a young man to play in my band, and we played poorly, but they still seemed to appreciate it. So, and so going on, what I would like to do first is learn a little bit more about who you are, Valerie, because I think that's important. You know, everybody's got a story, and you're an NDGer, and I had a brief conversation with you over the phone, but you were born here, and then you went off to LA. So where were you born, and where did you live in NDG at that age when when you were first, your feet first met this earth? What's that story?
So, my story, I was born actually at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital on Vendôme, and I
NDG,
lived in,
that's NDG, right?
yeah, that's NDG. And I lived in Crawford Park, which is part of Verdun. And unfortunately, my parents passed away. I was 9 when my mom passed away and 10 when my dad passed away. So I went to LA to live with an uncle and his wife. So my dad's brother. I had a choice actually of going to Winnipeg or LA, and I chose LA.
Well, I can understand that. No,
Yeah,
no disrespect to people in
yeah.
Winnipeg. Yeah.
Yeah, but
But
I don't know. I chose LA, and I had to do 1 year of grade school there before starting at Immaculate Heart High School. My freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year were done there. I graduated actually at the Hollywood Bowl. And then I always missed Montreal for some reason, living in LA, big bad LA. It didn't have, I don't know, depth that I was, for me, there was just something that drew me back to Montreal. I really missed it. I remember being in LA watching a Canadians hockey game. I see your hat there, Holden. I just, I would cry. I'm like, I want to go back to Montreal. I missed it so much. There's something about this city, and even more so in the community of NDG, it's you can't put your finger on it. It just draws you back. It's got a city with depth,
Right.
Montreal. So much diversity and culture, and LA's just it's people are cold, I find. Like, I don't know, it's nobody really talks to you. Like, you're here, I walk on Terrebonne and I talk to people. How are you today? How's it going? And I walk with the dog and I stop with, and talk to other dog owners. But in LA, it's like people just pass you and people, first of all, don't walk in LA. They take their car to go two doors down type thing, like it's not a thing. And I enjoy walking with the dog. So I came back to Montreal. I missed it. And along the way, I got hired at Air Canada. And I just retired 2 years ago. I took early retirement from Air Canada. And I wanted to work for Air Canada to get back to LA to see my folks a lot. I'm like, wow, this is a really good gig to get me back to LA all the time.
So your uncle and his wife are still in LA, and you're still very close to them?
My dad passed away. My dad and my mom. My dad passed away 2 years ago. So unfortunately, and
When you say your dad, you mean your uncle dad?
my uncle
Okay.
dad, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So, but anyway, my parents are buried here. My birth parents are buried here. And my birth father, I asked my uncle in LA, like he used to fly out to LA back in the day, in the early 70s and go visit his brother. My dad's name was George, and he would go visit Albert, his brother. And I said, why didn't he move here? Like, you guys are so close. And Albert said George never liked LA. He loved Montreal. And in fact, my birth father, lived on Sherbrooke Street, across from Cat Alley, across from Esposito.
Yeah, we had John Jordan on the show from
And
Cat
not only
Alley.
that, John Jordan's in the chat right now watching.
Awesome.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
So my dad lived across from Cat Alley and in the apartment building across the street. So, there's, I don't know, there's just, I like father, like daughter, I guess. So.
And I have to give a shout out to John Jordan, because the Cat Alley is something that he conceived and created, and now it's become kind of this landmark. People use it as a reference point. So I think that's really cool, right?
Yeah,
I think
that's culture right there.
It's made an imprint. It's made an imprint on the landscape culturally and socially, right? So I think that's very, very
Yeah.
cool.
I think NDG's wonderful. I love our community. I love my friend who lives in upstate New York, in Chazy near Plattsburgh. I mean, I told her, where do you live? I live in NDG. Oh, love NDG. People just love our community, and so do I. I think it's wonderful. You can walk everywhere. You can. I'm a cyclist, by the way. I take my bike to Esposito.
Oh my God!
In the
Wait,
summer.
Let me write this down. Valerie is a cyclist. Okay.
I do. I go down. I live on Terrebonne. I go down Grand. I hook up to NDG or Avenue or Côte Saint Antoine, and I go to with my pannier sacks to Esposito.
Yeah.
I biked to Fairview from NDG one time.
It's a good site. It's a good ride. I've done that before.
Yeah, have you? Yeah, it's a good ride.
I have. My mom lives in Pierrefonds, so I've gone out to the West Island a few times. And then I had a friend who I biked past Fairview, so I took the route all the way to Saint Jean, and then I had to go up above Fairview several blocks to one of the mother streets. So I did the route.
Yeah,
it's a great ride. I used to live in the West Island, and I used to go drinking downtown on my bike.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Shh. Don't tell anybody.
We all did crazy things when we were younger, right?
Yeah, but
Yeah,
at the end of the night, it was a rough ride to get back home. I tell you, it was
I bet it
long.
was.
It was very long.
Yeah,
But
I bet it was.
I tell you, when I got home though, it's like whatever I had that evening in terms of alcohol, it had cleared itself out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But now we know better, you know.
Yes, we know you should not
Yeah.
drink and drive your bike, okay? Girls and boys, not a
I
good idea.
mean,
Okay,
we shouldn't.
good to know.
We shouldn't.
All right,
Yeah.
I'm gonna get a knock on the door from the police later in the evening. A little DUI. Um, so that's a great story. I know I apologize, but I have to ask the question: why did your parents pass almost like so closely? Like, what happened there? Is there a story behind that?
What?
Or she was saying how her parents passed away when
Yeah,
she was young.
I was 9. My mom passed away of personal reasons, and my dad, he living across from Cat Alley actually. Um, that my dad living across from Cat Alley, George, was there, and he was epileptic.
Oh, I see.
So he was epileptic, and Albert drove from LA for the '76 Olympics
I see.
to go to the Olympics, and they being were Catholic, and they were going to church on a Sunday, and Albert was going to meet George to go to mass, and he had an epileptic seizure. You know, he had teeth marks on a broom, a wooden, broom to stop his tongue from going back in
Right.
his throat. He was supposed to get a thing, but never did. So, yeah, but I moved to LA when I was 11. Wow, that was going from Montreal to LA, quite something. It was great. I went to Immaculate Heart High School. It was a great high school. I had a great experience there. I learned
Sounds.
how to ski. I learned how to ski in Lake Tahoe when I was 14.
I heard those are
Yes,
awesome. I heard those are awesome hills. Like they're just fantastic. That's
Heavenly Valley, yeah. Tahoe is amazing.
I hear it's just. I've never done it, but people always talk about like how great the skiing is down there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, actually, it's funny, I did my driver's test in Montreal when I moved back from LA, and I didn't do so well because I wasn't sure how to park in snow. Like, how do so I had to rewrite the exam. It's okay. But I went to the DMV in LA. I got my license when I was 16 in LA, and driving in coming back was a little different. But a little bit about me. And
That's a good story.
so,
That's a great
yeah.
Yeah.
story.
And
Thank
I've
you for
settled,
sharing.
sure. I've settled I've been here in this home actually for 20 years. I've always loved NDG, our community, and what we stand for. And, I love, Thrive, and we can reach out, help each other. You know what I mean?
Oh, I love
Reach
Absolutely.
out
Thrive.
to one another. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, the reason why we asked you on the show is, as you know, this weekend you have a protest planned against the Terrebonne Bike Path. You and a number of neighbors who live on Terrebonne, as well with other concerned residents, have organized themselves to express concern and opposition to the current plan being proposed by the city. And it's been kind of a divisive, issue in the neighborhood. Um, and what makes it even more interesting, the whole issue with the Terrebonne Bike Path, is like this is our second run at it, right? And
Yeah.
and in the last administration, the politics kind of played in your favor to bring the end to bring the project to an end, because if you remember correctly, Sue Montgomery had a falling out with Project Montreal, and her counselors, along with Perez and Marvin Rotran, used the bike path as a way to, like, you know, what's a good way to say this, hurt Sue Montgomery as you know, hurt her authority and her credibility. So here we are back on the issue on Terrebonne Bike Path version 2.0, and now you have an administration that's very, very committed to the introduction of bike paths. And it's the same characters involved, not all of them, but you know, we got Peter McQueen still there, Magda's still there. And,
Yeah.
so it's just an interesting dynamic, you know, story from that perspective. You know, you can have just a conversation on that. But I guess before we get into specifically the Terrebonne Bike Path, you know, like we're living in an age or a period in which you know, people are starting to have conversations about, you know, how do we bring back cities for the people? Because what's happened over the last, say, 20, 30 years is the use of the automobile is exploded exponentially, and it's starting to impact our quality of life in an extremely negative way. And and I think that you as well, you agree with that, you know, view that we have to, you know, somehow manage these things properly in a way that doesn't detract from our quality of life. Is that a fair statement, or am I putting words in your mouth?
It's a fair statement. You know, we need cars. I need my automobile. I can't live without it. I try and take my bike as often as I can. You know, I do I told you I volunteer for Freedom Drivers. I drive abandoned, abused animals to shelters and rescues and their forever homes. I do often the Montreal to Les Cèdres run. So I need my car. I go to Costco. I have groceries.
Oh, you're not alone. I'm a businessman. I got a contracting company, and I need my truck. And
yes.
I mean,
I'm the owner.
Currently, I'm an Uber driver, so I'd be making a whole bunch of money with my car at the moment.
So,
yeah.
Holden's livelihood is dependent on his capacity to drive an automobile. And also, from what I understand from some of your posts, Holden, it's also dependent on your capacity to park your car near where you live so he can get access to it, right? So,
Anyway, honestly, like, I empathize with the thought of losing a parking spot that's convenient more than people may think, because I live in a place where there's a lot of people and not a lot of parking spots near it. Like, if you want to go walk 5 minutes, you'll find a spot. But there's a lot of days where you lose 15 minutes looking for a parking spot, and your standards start to go down as you go block by block farther in your radius of how far you're willing to walk, especially when half the streets are being plowed for snow and whatnot. And this is all new for me.
And
I'm miserable.
I'm lucky because I live on a street where parking is readily available. It's not really an issue. On top of that, I have a driveway, but my driveway was designed when automobiles were much smaller, and I drive the construction truck, so it doesn't fit. But saying that, you know, I think that, you know, we all have to recognize, and you know, like myself, you and Holden, we're all car owners, and it's a part of, you know, has become part of our lives, and in many ways we're dependent on it for our living, and you know, for the things that we needed to complete or do in our daily lives. So going on that, you know, I don't really know much about the new Terrebonne bike plan, to be honest with you. I hear news that the new information in the news about how there's kind of these people who are for and against. In your mind, what is really the key elements of the Terrebonne Bike Path? What is the city planning to do?
So I find our group, Residents Against Contre Piste Cyclable Terrebonne 2.0, we're not against bike paths.
Right.
That's not, like, I'm a cyclist. I get it. We're all about public consultation. So Mayor Grazia claimed that she consulted with the population. She never came to my door. She never called me.
Right.
She never sent me a survey or how do you feel being I'm directly impacted as a Terrebonne Street resident, myself and my neighbors.
Right.
So, she never asked me. So, public consultation, like, how do I feel? Let's all work together. Let's come up with a bike path plan that works for residents, teachers, nurses, delivery trucks, service trucks, visitors. Who am I leaving out? I mean, for the community, for the greater good. I understand there's a small group of cyclists that really, really want this bike path. I get it. It's just, in 2020, it was a nightmare. There was how do I get to my house to drop off my groceries? I mean, you can't, the neighbor down the street, he's an old man. He parked in the bike path lane, and he had to go upstairs. Already on Grand, there was no parking. So imagine, no parking on Grand because of all the apartment buildings. He parked in the bike path lane, went upstairs to bring his groceries, and came back and had a $230 ticket. He's an old man. Where is he? That's without a bike path on Terrebonne. So I've been posting pictures in the evening of full of parked cars, and then so we take away close to 300 parking spots. Now we have to park on side streets that are already full. So
they're taking away, they're taking the parking away from the entire one side of the street. Is that the plan?
That's the plan. Yeah.
So it's one side that loses parking, not both sides.
Just one side loses parking. So there's parking on the north side, but I looked at the plan, and on my block, there's a plan to put parking spots where there's a driveway. So right. Take away that space. Now we're down to, I counted 19 spots on my block. And if you take away that one spot that's ill-planned, we're down to 4. In the winter with snowbanks, you're down to 2. So right. That's a lot of parking spots. I mean, I can't, I need my car. I can't live without it. I go up north, I do my freedom drives. Before I was working, I'd have to get to the airport sometimes at 4 in the morning.
Right.
So
public
that's
transportation.
my reality.
Yeah, I don't think there's really quality public transportation available at that hour at 4 o'clock.
No, I did it once, and it took like 2 hours to get to the airport. I mean, Dorval Trudeau is 14 minutes away.
Yeah, it's close by car.
By car.
Incredible.
Yeah, so I'm not getting up at 2 in the morning, so I could take public transit to get to the airport, and then the snow, and then right. So yeah, I find. I cycle on Terrebonne regularly. I have for almost 20 years. I've never had an issue. We have to be situationally aware. When you're cycling, you got to know have your lights on. I have, even in the day, I've got a light in the back, in the front. I've got my helmet. I've got my gloves. I'm constantly looking for people opening their doors. Anywhere in the streets of Montreal, you gotta be careful.
I just want to add to that. Having a bike path doesn't mean anyone's going to use it. Like, I'll be honest, as a cyclist, I never touch Terrebonne. It is just like, there's so many other streets you would just cycle on to go anywhere. Like, if you're really going downtown, you're probably going to go to Maisonneuve. If you're going on the other side of the mountain, you're probably going to go up the Fielding-Lucerne route. And then there are people who want to bike a super uphill on the mountain for fun. I get that. I've never been one of those people, but that's the real minority in my opinion. So like, I think there is an argument.
Yeah, but you don't use Terrebonne to go over the mountain. You go up to Fielding. Because right. Fielding connects over to Isabella, right? And that's how you go to the mountain.
But I think
I'm actually, and I'm not saying this to like give the city a hard time, but I'm just trying to understand, like, in the larger context, what is the purpose of the Terrebonne Bike Path? Is it to serve the institutions that are
No, I
the
think
schools
it will be
that are
to
there?
connect. It's going to connect to like the greater bike path network. So like the one thing I will say about like cycling in the city is that NDG is not the best representation of cycling in the city. And
No.
if you go to other neighborhoods, the density of cyclists is so much that they arguably have a point that there really is a need for better infrastructure per se. Now, this isn't to say that Terrebonne is the place for it, because again, personally, I'd never use it either way, so it doesn't really affect me. But I do understand how, if you really think about NDG's network, it is pretty disconnected from the rest of the city, and that was my understanding of it.
Very disconnected.
But
Yeah.
I only really been driving for the last couple of months, but I've come to use Terrebonne a whole lot as a driver, because it's
You have,
because
right?
when you go on Waze, it tells you a lot of the time when Côte Saint Luc Road is denser on traffic, that Terrebonne route kind of cuts up to Côte Saint Luc Road so you can get on the highway, and it's a nice, good, in dense times route to take across NDG. Now, the one thing I would say that would be really interesting to add to their proposed changes is it's not just removing all of the things from one side of the street. They're also using Cavendish as a divider and making Terrebonne a one-way street in each direction. So it'll go west, or it'll go towards the Carry from the Cavendish one way only,
East,
and
yeah.
then from the other side it'll go west from Cavendish,
Which is
towards
going to create
Concordia.
a lot of traffic. That's going to create a lot of traffic at that intersection, Cavendish and Terrebonne. A ton of traffic. And also, I don't see how it's safe. We have to think of our community. The reality is that we have St. Monica's school, we have Willingdon School. So now, how are parents going to drop off their children at school in the morning on the way to work? But they have to get to the office. So they're going to have to park on the north side. They have to park on the north side, cross the street, cross a bike path to get to St. Monica's or Willingdon. How is that safe? How about Mackay Center? How are parents supposed to get their kids to the Mackay Center safely?
The
with their
Mackay
bike path
Center
there?
has a whole drive-in thing in defense, because
Has
I
it?
do Uber. I've done pickup there, so in theory, for the Mackay Center, you would drive right up to the door. They wouldn't touch the bike path.
And the bike.
That's for school buses though. That driveway. Parents drop off on Terrebonne too. They had a problem in 2020.
Yeah,
they had a big problem.
Yeah, but the bike path is on the south side, not the north side. Is it on the north side or south side?
Yeah, it's on both sides.
Oh, it's on both sides. Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
you have to each the south sidewalk, we have a bike path heading towards the Carry from Cavendish to Giroir. It's heading towards the Carry. Then you have a traffic lane. Then you have a parking lane. Then you have a bike path lane going on the north side of the sidewalk attached to going west.
Why do they decide to do that? Because most places in the city, what they do is they put the bike path together and they shrink the street. And why have they decided on this particular plan? Is there It's
part of the it was decided by the city of Montreal to do that EXP report and spend $150,000.
Yeah, so the expert people did go over that briefly. They've showed like several options of what it could look like, and I don't remember what their reason was, but honestly, they use all configurations around the city. Like sometimes it is lately I find they're moving more towards what they're implementing on Terrebonne as the way they want to do it. So even if they've done it in the past, I will say there may be something to the logic of it, because I don't know, as a cyclist in like the plateau, you're kind of appreciative of having like the park car lane, bike path, and then sidewalk. It's a little nicer than the other option. So I get where they're going with it. I just think maybe, I don't know if Terrebonne's the right street for it. I totally
I just want to say that there was a scenario that there was a committee okay, that
Right.
came up with
I
that
just
was
want to
presided
quickly
by.
just shout out Adam in the comments. He said the exact same design is used on Belfast. There's a Sejip and hockey arena.
Okay, so there was a committee. It was presided by Peter McQueen, and proposed by Sue Montgomery and approved by Christian Arsenault. So the committee came up with a bike path plan that Peter McQueen chaired, and that's something that we're all for. It keeps parking on both sides. It has a bike lane for.
But that's Terrebonne version 1.0, right? During the Sue Montgomery administration. Is that what you're referring to?
This is a bike path. Well, during Sue Montgomery administration, there was no parking. Completely eliminated parking.
So there was another plan proposed by this committee that
Yes.
Peter McQueen established, and
Yes.
in that plan, the parking was maintained. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And
But
this committee worked very hard.
Yeah, but that plan
on
was abandoned
Yes.
during Sue Montgomery's administration.
During Sue Montgomery's administration, they came up with the bike path on both sides and eliminated all parking.
Yes, but that plan that you're referring to with the Peter McQueen committee, that was abandoned during that administration.
No. A new committee came out,
I see.
went back to the drawing table after the bike path was taken down in
Okay.
2020.
Okay.
Okay, and this committee worked long and hard on a bike path plan. It was agreed upon, and it was scrapped. Okay.
Why was it scrapped?
I don't know. You'd have to ask Peter McQueen that question.
Now,
why haven't the committee been called back to the table? So
I have a political question. When this committee was conducting its work, is this when Sue Montgomery had been? Yeah, she was basically no longer a member of Prussia. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Interesting. I didn't know about that.
Yeah. So a committee, they came up with a plan that everybody agreed to.
Right.
This committee and
Can
Peter
I just
McQueen
ask quickly? So like that was like they went door to door. They asked everybody. Like, how did they consult you in a way that would be more satisfactory? Like, I'm just curious on that point because I understand that this round they had a committee that was like 3 people in the community or something like that. Like it wasn't a representation of everyone. So what is the good way to approach this in your opinion?
This is, the plan that the committee came up with is something I and others we could live with. It shares the road with cyclists. It maintains the parking. We have a traffic lane. As far as like maybe the Mackay Center would be affected by this, getting their children across a bike lane. So I would like that to be revisited, and it does maintain a bike lane.
But like, how would they reach you? So let's say they wanted to revisit it and do a proper public consultation. What does that actually entail? Like, do they have to go door to door? Do they send a survey? Like, what is the best way for them to ask you the right approach for the bike path?
I would like Mayor Grazia, Peter McQueen, to reinvestigate this bike path plan, because right now the community is up in arms over this. Everyone, I speak to people walking on Terrebonne. I'm walking the dog. I stop people. I say, hey, did you know they're bringing back the bike path? And out of 20 people, 19 are against this. I swear to God, they're like, it's awful. What do you, and a lot of people don't even know about it. They're like, really? No, they're not bringing it back. No way. It was here. It was taken down. So, I mean, it's a good compromise. I'm asking our mayor, our councillors to reinvestigate this bike path plan, which is we can all work with.
So,
So
to sort of like, ask you, as a resident on Terrebonne, because one of the reasons why we were excited to have you in the show is that, you live on Terrebonne, right? You give kind of
yes,
a human kind of like component or element to the whole conversation. So you live on Terrebonne. You own a house there, is that correct?
I do. I own
And
a
and,
house on Terrebonne.
and
No,
describe.
and I have no parking and no garage. I have to
Okay.
park on the street.
Fair enough. But dude, describe your neighbors to us. Do you know your neighbors? Like, who are the people who live on Terrebonne? Are there older people? Are there families? Is it a mix? You say NEG is a cool place and you talk to people, which I'm sure you do, like I do. And like on my street where I live, we have quite a bit of older, long-term residents, right? And I think that we had this conversation before the show started because finding out the demographic makeup of NDG is kind of tough because the data gets kind of bunched in with Cotoneige, right? And it's different than
Hmm.
us, or it gets bunched in with Westmount as part of the federal district, right? There's not really data for
Yes,
NDG proper. So, my impression, but these are subjective observations, is that NDG is typically an older population, right? It's
yes,
not
right.
and a lot of our older senior residents, are starting to experience mobility issues, and we have to be cognizant of that, right? But at the
Yes.
same time, right, we have to be cognizant that we have to, and myself, I'm guilty of sin. We need to get exercise. It's part of a healthy lifestyle. And I read a Canadian stat that only 29% of us are actually involved in any physical activity, sports, or anything like that.
Hmm.
So that means 71% of us are sitting in our derrieres a little bit too much and watching a little bit too much TV, right? So, but saying that, I'm blabbing. Sorry. Who are your neighbors? Describe them to
Yeah,
us.
no, it's a really
So,
good question.
my neighbors there were a mixed bag. I live upstairs. I'm in a co-property. My neighbor downstairs, her husband is in a home, mobility issues. The adapted transport needs to bring him home. What else? Oh gosh, we're a mixed bag. I met a woman shoveling out her car about a month ago who lives in the building across the street, and I said, "Are you aware they're bringing back the bike path?" And she's like, "No, I can't. No, I mean, I've got two little kids. I have to
Right.
take them to school in the morning. I'm not going to have two little kids in tow and walk 3 blocks to get to my car." And then drop them at school, get to work. It's not safe for me as a single mother to do that. Um, it's just we have Terrebonne Street residents. We have cars. We don't have anywhere to park them. The city doesn't want to give us permits to build a parking on our front lawns. I remember I watched something from the mayor of Park X saying, "But the street is public space. Why would I can't put my Frigidaire on the street?" Well, we're not talking about that. I'm a resident. I'm not going to put my fridge on the street. But I do need space for my car. Where would you like me to put it other than the street? I'm not saying I want parking in front of my building. I would like parking within reasonable reach of my residence. When I come home with bags and groceries and whatever else I have to carry, I can't be parking 3 blocks away. It's not it's terrible. And then there's winter. We have winter. I've been here for 20 years. I see the snowbanks in front, and then you have even less parking spots on Terrebonne. It's just a nightmare. People have to shovel their cars out, and anyway, you know what it's like in
Right.
winter here in NDG. Build it and they'll come. I'm not going to start cycling when it's minus 20 outside in the winter and it's slippery. And I actually slipped on the ice the other day and I sprained my ankle. I ended up in the emergency room. And I'm recovering now. I no broken bones. I'm not going to start cycling in the winter. I'm sorry.
Now,
I
I
mean,
would say, just to respond to
no.
that, I looked into the data, and unfortunately for the people who don't believe it, winter cyclists are on an exponential increase in Montreal, which is a reality that I think a lot of, and keep in mind, I don't say NDG because, like I said before, NDG is a terrible representation of it, but NDG is part of Montreal. So if we're thinking about forward future planning, there is a need across the community for greater bike path infrastructure and to accommodate winter cyclists, because when you are driving behind a winter cyclist and it is awful, to be honest with you, to be stuck behind them, and they go really slow because they're trying not to break bones. Respectable, but they're everywhere now. I see them all over, and I'm now driving like 30-ish hours a week, 20 to 30 hours, just, that's what I'm doing. And I do think that there's a need for it, and I don't know if Terrebonne's the right place for it, because personally, again, I would never use it, so it's hard for me to fathom it being right. I think Fielding needs some hella investment in its bike path ecosystem, because putting a parking lane is nice, but that bike path's scary. Like, there's a lot of construction work I think needs to get done on the existing ones. Oh, but Maisonneuve is like, people need to stop making it sound like it's the greatest option. It's a great option if you're trying to go downtown. Otherwise, it's the most out-of-the-way bike path in the world for pretty much all people. I will also just say that I think the demographic breakdown of NDG is shifting. There's a lot of young people who live in buildings, but in the places that are more homeowner dense, like Terrebonne, I do think that it is an older population, and that needs to be taken into consideration. So it might be worth going to a more building dense street, like where already the parking's crap, etc., is, and like add a bike path there, like maybe Summerlet or something. I don't really know. I'm just kind of spitballing. But if that's really the concern, like, it would be interesting to see demographic breakdown on where older people are more densely located in it, because I think a lot of the times we don't really have this information, like Alex was saying. And like, when I've looked into demographic realities, it was wild to me to see that the borough officially like has a lot more immigration happening. Like, that's how our city grows, is immigration. And that's how Montreal and Quebec has grown for like my entire life. So it's because we don't procreate faster. Like, we just don't as a community. Our birth rate is under 2. As long as your birth rate is under 2, that means couples are having less babies than the couple on average.
Well, I gotta jump in here, because I have looked at the demographic population figures of the borough CDNG, and what I can tell you is that there were a lot more people in CDNEG back in 1969, I think, than there is now. We had 180,000 people living in the borough back then, and now we're at 170, and it's taken us a long time to get back up to 170,000 people. And the recent population figures, there was a dip, a significant dip in 2022. It went back up in 2023. Clearly, we don't have the numbers for 2024 yet. But this idea that the immigrant population is making CDNEG's population grow as a whole, like a total number, it's incorrect. What they're doing is replacing people who are leaving. Now, where are those people going? I don't know. But that's the question.
Supports the community shift of demographics
yes,
that I was bringing to the table.
Yes, it does.
Because without being crass about this, I did notice that at the city town hall meeting for the bike path, it was one demographic that was largely represented, but pretty much all the other demographics were not represented at that. And it made me wonder a lot why that was the case. And maybe it's because the city is not doing a great job of communicating these issues to the new people. And like, I'll be honest, I don't know what an NDG community council does.
Or maybe like, they don't care. I know it
exists, but I don't know what it does.
Or maybe I'm sorry, but maybe the immigrants, the newly arrived immigrants, right? They don't care because they're preoccupied with more pressing issues, right? They're here.
That's possible, but I'm going to be honest. I don't know if that's the case, because I'm more or less from the city and I have no idea what's going on. I had to make all these proactive efforts to learn what's happening. If Thrive NDG did not have people arguing about this stuff, I would have no idea what anybody's doing in the city. And
is that an argument for increasing the number of arguments on Thrive NDG?
I think that is thriving. For everyone else, I think that thriving is growing, because I Googled the word, and growing involves growing pains, which comes from people coming together at a 17,000 person mass. There's no way we all agree. My personal style drives a lot of people nuts. That's fine. Other people drive me nuts. That's what happens when you're in a community. But up until Thrive NDG, there has been, in my adult life, no real community hub that has served the function of a town square to encourage this debate in any capacity. I don't know what's happening from the city. I don't think they do a lot. They might leave these occasional really boring pamphlets in my news box, and I don't read them, and that's on me. But they don't do anything to reach me. I don't really see them all on TikTok dropping the hot news tidbit. They don't really do the things I do to consume news. So I think a lot of people coming here have zero idea where to go to get the information. And when you're new here, your first thought isn't, what's city council up here? So I think there's a lot of onus of responsibility on the city to actually make a bigger effort, because the one thing I would have to say is, after going through everything with Mr. Rappaport and seeing everything he stands for and whatever, is he had a point. This thing was not necessarily implemented amazingly, and the study did not take into account winter conditions, and there are things that are done. Unfortunately, I think people don't want to pay for a good study, because it'll cost y'all a lot more than $150,000, because people got salaries and stuff, and studies are expensive because people got salaries and stuff. But
the study is flawed. It's a flawed study. It's not complete. Yes.
I was left with the same feeling, though. I was left with that, and at least
they took
the people who represented to it were not adequately prepared to deal with the largely English population speaking to them, and then we're kind of patronizing towards the people asking questions after the fact, because they had already addressed certain things, which was really weird to me. So I do think there's something the city can do to improve this dialogue and not make people feel the way that Val feels and the other residents feel, because you shouldn't have no idea if this is coming until the city shows up one day with construction trucks.
Yeah.
I get the impression a lot in NDG, what's happening citywide is that the city has come up with, through its experts, and they've come up with this kind of like a cookie cutter approach to bike paths or whatever the case may be, and a lot of the mindset, or I think the ideas that are really being pushed in the city they were germinated in the plateau, and that's great. Like, Plateau is a great place. Not as good as NDG, of course.
And then
great place. But I think that what we need in NDG is to have some organic solutions to our community issues. And I think I personally, right, as someone who runs a construction business and owns multiple vehicles, the environment remains very important to me. I'm very concerned about it. I'm also very concerned about living in an environment where I feel my children can feel safe, where they can walk to school and feel safe doing that, riding their bike. I think we all share these values. How do we get that to work in a way that works for us? I think that's a larger community conversation. But and Holden, you were saying about,
I just want to. Can I just add? We have a couple of comments. So this is great, because we have comments on every platform today: Twitch, YouTube, Facebook. They're everywhere today. Right. So I do. LC said this a bit earlier. Valerie, hook me up with the info about the protest. I'd love to be there. So just in case we forget, can you just take 2 seconds to just plug the protest and where it's going to be and how people can participate? And then I'll just get to the other comments.
Okay. Protest, you want me to talk? I just want to talk quickly about the study, if you don't mind.
Go for
it was done. Mayor Grazia claims that there's 400 crossings on Terrebonne a day. So 365 days, really? It was done one day, October 4th, 2022, from 6:30 in the morning till 9:30 a.m., 3:30 in the afternoon till 6:30 p.m.
When you're
That's
talking,
not, that's
yeah, when you're talking crossings, you mean bike crossings? Is that what you're talking
bike
about?
crossings,
Okay.
cyclist crossings. So claiming that there's 400 a day is inaccurate, okay? Because that was one day, October 4th, 2022. Parking was studied on 2 days, a Thursday and a Saturday. Thursday, September 29, 2022, and Saturday, October 1st, 2022. 2 days. You know, taking away 55% of parking, no consultation about this bike path plan. We got an information session. We weren't allowed to ask questions. It was all technical. I mean, this is all things, it impacts me as a resident. It impacts parishioners at St. Monica's who are older. Like, where are they supposed to park? Parents, I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, parents dropping off their kids at St. Monica's, Willingdon, the Mackay Center. I mean, it impacts not only me, it impacts our community
So you're
as
having
a whole.
you're having
So
you're having
we're
this protest,
thousands of people. We're having a march on Saturday at
right?
1 p.m. March in protest of the current Terrebonne 2.0 bike path. We want,
And where are you guys meeting at one
we're
time?
meeting on Girouard and Terrebonne at 1 p.m. on Saturday.
Okay, so
We're
to
meeting.
repeat,
We're heading. Yeah.
Saturday, corner of Girouard and Terrebonne at 1 o'clock.
1 p.m. And the weather's
Right.
supposed to be nice. So no freezing rain like last week. We had freezing rain issues to deal with, so we had to cancel. But it's going to be nice so far, so good.
And then you guys are planning to do a big show at the February 5th council meeting, Monday night.
Yes. We're going to have a protest for that in 6 o'clock in front of the council meeting, 5160 DeCarey at 6 p.m. We suspect.
Do you have a plan for question period? You're limited to 3 questions, right? So
you're limited to 3 questions.
Yeah, but there's ways to work around that, of course. But do you have a plan? Can people call you and say, "Hey, I want to be part of the plan to ask questions," or you guys already have that kind of set up?
We absolutely, people can reach out to me. We have a Facebook group, as you know, Residents Against Contre Piste Cyclable Terrebonne 2.0. Please join our group. We have a lot of information on our Facebook page about marches, meetings, in protest on Monday. We want this plan to be scrapped. We need a bike path. And if so, if we need a bike path, what is the optimal bike path that is needed on Terrebonne?
Excellent. Well said. So, Holden, what other comments are out there right now from the listeners?
No. So we have Ty Verbeats saying they're totally for the bike pass, and if I mispronounce people's names, my bad. If the city could focus on having pothole-free bike pass, that would be a great place to start, which I'm really with y'all with the pothole-free bike pass. That would be nice, because sometimes you be in the bike path, and then you got to go in the street, and then you got to go back in the bike path. And that's a real part of biking. And then they said, and the corner on Girouard is already and will be an even bigger bottleneck if this goes through. And yeah, I can see your point. That would make that bottleneck a little bit worse, having this happen. And
the schools are against this, by the way.
Has the EMSB come out officially and declared its opposition?
The St. Monica's board of directors, in the minutes, it was said that they're up in arms about this bike path. They're against it. The school buses dropping kids off at St. Monica's, where are they supposed to park? They can't park in front of the street, in front of the school now.
Right.
So it impacts, and nurses from the CLSC going to help people in their homes, teachers coming from all around the island have to park their cars at the schools. So it's not just me. And yeah, and
Valerie, don't
Valerie, I think
don't
you
think for a
made,
second that we
like,
think that it's
you
you.
made
There's a
some
lot of
like
people
really
against this bike path.
excellent points, right?
Yeah.
I think that you're representing the people who are going to be directly impacted by the immediate moves that are going on. And when it comes down to it, even if you're talking about big city future planning, which is related as a conversation, it's something that needs to be considered. And are there going to be solutions? Like, is there going to be like a transitional period? Maybe the city isn't so quick to give you a ticket if you're just unloading groceries. Like, I don't know all the answers, but like, it sounds a bit like that's the frustration, is that people feel like a giant change is being forced on them, that they weren't consulted, then they were told they were consulted, and then the city has done a pretty inadequate job of creating an open town hall session for their politicians to get yelled at by constituents, which that's a politician's job, yo. Like, I'm sorry, y'all got elected, you should have known that was part of your job. And you, like, what? Anytime I see politicians whining about dealing with people, I'm like, why did you vote? Why did you go run? Why did you put yourself into that world?
It's funny you say that. It's funny that you say, sorry, it's funny that Holden says that, because I really do get that sense from our borough council, is that and Sonny Morales has publicly complained about this, is that there is this there's narrative of wanting to have public engagement and public conversation, but all the indicators are pretty bad, right? And is that the politicians' fault? No, it's not entirely their fault. We have to assume some of the blame for that. A lot of us don't even vote. We don't engage ourselves in our civic and public affairs. And I think also
I'm still gonna blame the politicians for being fucking boring about it. Like, I do.
Yeah,
think
they are boring about it. They're not really doing anything to engage us.
If the way Montreal is structured, that your elected officials are just figureheads that are project managers that ask for stuff, and it's like the appointed people really do the work, then that's their only job, is to make people care and to find out what people want and advocate that properly.
I hear you, Holden. I totally hear you.
I mean, I'm just saying, my opinion of what a politician should do is what it is, but I do think that and I'm not saying that they don't do a lot. I'm not here to hate on Peter McQueen. Y'all got to give that guy a break.
No,
he's actually
I'm not giving him any bricks.
Sorry. Everyone hates on that guy. He takes a lot. But at the same time, he chooses to stay in office. He chooses to continue running. He's the masochist that he is, and he, that's the job, is to take the heat. You got to be a masochist to get into politics. Are you kidding me? You're asking to get pooped on the entire freaking time.
Alrighty.
Mayor Grazia, by the way, Grazia won by 161 votes.
That's correct.
Despina Sorios won by 101 votes.
There was a
very
recount.
slim. Yeah. So, I mean, 2025 is coming up, and you got to listen to your people, like you said, Holden. Mayor Grazia, she's my mayor. I don't feel heard. People, I'm writing to her. Others are writing to her. We're all getting the same cookie cutter. We're all getting the same cookie cutter response. Like, we hear your concerns. Yeah. But we're doing it anyway. It's like, how is that democratic? You have to listen to I'm a taxpayer. I'm a homeowner. I'm a resident on Terrebonne. You're not listening to me. You're not listening to me. You're not listening to neighbors, parishioners.
And by the way, we got our tax bills today. And
I just paid mine. I got mine yesterday.
With regards to the democratic conversation, as much as this affects Terrebonne, it is a bigger NDG conversation, right?
It is.
So let's say they did a referendum of sorts, and they actually campaigned for like 6 months, and everybody, like the majority of NDG, except for the people who are directly impacted on Terrebonne, are for this. In that universe, would you guys feel then that due process was done and you lost and would have to accept it? Or would like is that would be my only thing on the Democratic front is democracy. Like my vote should count for what happens on all the streets in NDG as much as yours, because while I don't own a home, apparently my rent does pay taxes. So yeah, we're all like part of it, and that's the only thing I really want to know from any side. Same thing with the pro bike path people, because I'm not really on their team either. Is like, if democracy says your side loses, will you accept that result?
Well, if we have a vote and everyone, but look who was at the meeting November 30th. Everyone was upset, and we weren't. So many people expressed their concern, and they were upset about this. Holden and Alex.
It was still a sample of three.
I was
there. It was only about 250 people, because the auditorium only holds about 280, I think, is capacity. So fine. So let's say there's 80,000 people or 76,000 people in NDG. So like really, if the big numbers got put to it and like 50,000 people were for it and 20,000 people were against it, at that point, how, and I'm not asking it to be facetious, I just think it's a question that needs to be put towards these kinds of issues. If it's about democracy, are you okay with losing democracy?
Well, you have to accept that. That's a what if situation. That's,
I get that you're currently in the fight right now, right?
Election result.
Democracy, I don't really think democracy is a win-lose proposition. It can be. I think democracy is messy. It's supposed to be messy. I think a lot of people think that there's this expectation that things are just going to happen naturally and they'll resolve themselves. No, we need to have Thrive level arguments, right, to a certain degree, and we need to have a public debate. Do I think that the level of civism could be better in terms of those conversations? Absolutely. I think all of us do at some level. But back on the bike path, this conversation that we're having right now with Valerie, I think this is very important. And I reach out also to the people who support the bike path in its current form, to consider that this is impacting.
Well, we already have somebody on Twitch who is more on the pro side. Their comment that I do want to bring up is that they're like a math person, like that's what they do for life. And they were like, the way studies tend to be done for this type of thing is to study one day, because traffic patterns are really average. Even the US apparently does this, like this is a standard. So if the way they conducted the study is a standard, I think it should be noted that maybe they did the study right, but winter was not taken into consideration in their study. And I think that's a valid point that should also be brought up. And maybe there's additional studying that could be done. But if we want that, I'm going to put it out here, we can't be mad about paying for additional study. That's another reality. Like, I do think $150,000
that came from the feds, by the way. It didn't come from the borough.
I know that I personally don't like doing anything for less than $25 an hour at this age. So I don't think most professionals like doing anything for less than $25 an hour. And when you get to experts on contracts, you're talking like $40 to $50 an hour.
Nah, it's $150 there. Hold it. It's a lot higher than that.
But the thing is if you want the competent data analysts, unfortunately, the study's not going to be cheap. And I just have to throw that into the universe, because that's how studies work. And that's the only part that's baffled me in all of this, is like, I don't think like people aren't doing studies for free. That's somebody's like actual job. So if we want better studies, are we okay? Like, are you guys okay with paying for more studies?
But I just don't understand why a thorough study wasn't done for $100,000. How can you
salaries? I can break that down on a salary level. Like, just think about it. Each of these people are going to get paid about $50,000 a year. And that's like the amount of work you guys want to track dates. That's more than one person on those days. That's somebody standing on a corner clicking a button kind of thing. These all cost salary money. That's almost the entire cost of the study is paying people to do the grunt work. So it's impossible to do that for less than $100,000. Like, I can really pull out an Excel file and be like, let me show you how this works.
Yeah, but hold on, I got to push back. This is the city, right? And I more times than not, I question the value of the tax dollars that we spend and the results we get in return. And
I'm not saying the results were good. I'm just saying I don't know how a study could be
well,
done.
it's not
A
a
study
question
worth doing could be done for less money. I don't think it's
no,
possible.
I'm not suggesting that we don't need to pay for a study. I'm just, I'm throwing out, the objection there, and I think it's a reasonable objection of the the value we receive in exchange for the services we get from the city, and that's on all
Totally
different
appreciate
levels.
that. I just
all different levels, right?
But I'm just saying when it comes down to like having a study and we talk about paying people to do the study, I just don't know what we expect. Are we paying them $10 an hour? Like, how do we actually run a study that
we're paying
takes
them a
time?
lot more than that.
But like,
what
should we be paying them? Because like that's really my question. Like,
but I don't want
to.
Yeah, but I don't really. I don't want to really focus on the cost of the study because I don't.
It's a huge part of this debate. It is. It comes up in every conversation I have in it. Actually, it's to a point where I've looked into this and I've busted out Excel sheets and I've done some basic maths at lower salary ranges. If you're paying somebody like $22 an hour, like we're talking about $48,000 a year. So it's like that's not even a skilled college graduate person. That's a regular employee.
Fair enough. But I think the question is less about how much the study costs. I think the question is more,
my question is if we want to do better studies, are we willing to pay for it? Because if we want to do better studies, it will cost more.
I think better studies and better information comes from having the appropriate data and appropriate information.
How do you get that data?
And I think that, how do you get that data? Well, I think that in my mind, I've always had this philosophy in my life and my business. I know my business better than anybody else does, right? So if I'm going to do an evaluation, a study of my business, I have to be directly and involved in that in a kind of intensive way. And as it relates to the Terrebonne Bike Path, I think that we need to have public participation in an intensive way in order to generate a report that's reflective of the environment.
So let's say we do that. Do you know how much it would cost to analyze those results? Because that used to be my job, to go through that kind of data and parse it.
It's expensive. I just want.
But
this conversation we're having right now is part of that process, right? And
agreed.
How do we package that, right? I don't know. Like I'm not paid to be an employee of the city to process data.
But like if we're talking about moving things forward, would that be like something? Do you guys want more studying? And if there is more studying to be done, are we all willing to pay for that more studying? Because that would, like, I'm just trying to think pragmatically here. Let's say we stop the bike path and you guys win this situation. What are the next steps? Do we just dead the project forever?
Well,
do we restudy it further?
That's the last point on the agenda, Holden, is options, proposals. How do we move forward? Like, if we collectively decide that the plan proposed by the city for the current plan for Terrebonne is not the right plan for us, then I guess the question is, what is the right plan for us? And maybe we don't have the answer to that question. Maybe the question is, what's the road that we need to travel together as a community to start creating organic solutions that work for us, considering the unique nature of NDG, right? And that unique nature, is multifaceted.
But this was all brought up with the committee that was formed, and Peter McQueen chaired. It was the people that live on Terrebonne. There were quite a few members.
This is the proposal you were talking about that was introduced after the first failure of the bike path. And so we already went through this process, basically, is what you're saying.
It was already done, and it was chaired by Peter McQueen.
That's super fair.
Yes, proposed by Sue Montgomery, approved by Christine Arsenault. What happened to that?
Apparently the committee asked for the study. Did that happen? Was it that this committee asked for this study, and then this study happened?
After 2020, and the bike path got taken down? They went back to the drawing board with this committee, and the committee came up with a fabulous plan, which has, they worked hours tirelessly on this, the plan for Terrebonne Bike Path, and Mayor Grazia has not reached out to these people. once again. It was just put to sleep.
Yeah,
I mean,
the
that was free.
the
So
company
why? Yeah,
the company that did
It's
the
not
recent
free, but
study
low cost.
is they sub us
yeah,
XCP Inc. and
yes,
they're located in Fernand de La Fontaine in Longueuil, which is kind of
yeah.
strange for me that they would have a company in Longueuil doing an evaluation of
Are they
Côte-Neige.
good
Yeah.
at urban city planning? Because if they are, I
I
want
don't
the
know.
best people for the dollar. I don't care where they're from.
Okay,
This
fair
is
enough.
something, like, no offense, but like I geek on urban development videos and I have for years, and it's actually a universal topic, and it's not as like, yes, there are realities to our neighborhood, but when we're talking about this type of thing, there are just really good people at it, and I want the best studying it. I don't want no amateur. And if the guy in NDG is less good than the guy out of NDG for this, let's hire the best, so we get good results. That's my honest opinion, because it's urban city
I don't know.
development.
There was apparently 15 incidents on Terrebonne Street, according to the report. If you look at the experiencearcus.com formula, and you put in from 2014 to 2020, there's actually, I see 3 incidents. There was a fatality on Giroir in Terrebonne, September 3rd, 2019, involving an 84-year-old pedestrian struck by a dump truck. Girouard and Terrebonne, there's crosswalks, there's traffic lights. Maybe the guy, like, I don't know what happened. Maybe somebody wasn't paying attention, but how much safer can that intersection be? And there was a fatality there, unfortunately. I'm not saying the guy was, but maybe he was looking somewhere else, or who knows. But that was a terrible accident. Safety. How much safer can that intersection be? Do you know which intersection I'm talking about? Terrebonne and Girouard. There's
Yeah.
crosswalks, traffic lights. It's fine. The other 2 incidents, I don't know what happened, but I'd like to know. And I've reached out
That is a
to
pretty
Mayor
safe intersection,
Grazia.
actually.
I've reached out to Mayor Grazia. How did you come up with 15 incidents? A lot of the
So,
things in the report aren't accurate.
so we have
400
someone in the
crossings a day.
comments
No.
saying that at that very intersection, they filmed a video of a near incident where they almost died, but because they didn't get hurt, it didn't get counted as an incident. So in his case, it was a thing. That exact intersection proved to be unsafe. Now, I honestly don't know what the threshold of safe or not is, but I do think sometimes incidents get sensation to make action happen, because we hear a number like 13 and we have to move. But like, we're also a giant city, and unfortunately traffic fatalities will happen, and we should make efforts to be safer, but I don't know what the threshold is. I'm not really sure what it should be, but I don't know. Like, I've always felt weird about that kind of data being used as evidence for or against, because it's like, I mean, you're right. You could make everything safer, and then somebody's drunk one day and kills somebody, or somebody's tired one day and kills somebody, or it happens. I don't know. I don't know exactly what I'm trying to say, but like, to the effect of, I feel like sometimes people throw that data around, like 15 incidents over how much time. Is that a lot or a little? What's the relative value? How many incidents are on Saint Denis? Because I've had a couple of near misses on Saint Denis, being reckless myself. Not to say that. Anyway, I'm just find it a weird data point, I guess, is what I'm saying.
And Terrebonne is an emergency route too. So I see fire trucks zooming by. It's an emergency route. West of Cavendish, you're not thinking about, people that need to get to their homes. The people are a little older, need to get to their homes.
So this plan
Yeah.
the one that was banded that Peter McQueen had developed
Yes, Chair,
what you are you familiar with this plan? What
I
was this
am.
plan? So tell us about
I
this
am.
plan. What was this plan?
I don't have a diagram, unfortunately, but there is a bike lane. It maintains parking on both sides of Terrebonne. You'd have to make it one way, but there is a cycling lane going from what was proposed. I'm 99% sure about this. I don't have the photo on under my thumb, but going from east to west on the north side, there's a cycling lane, and then going west to east, there's a shared lane of cars and cyclists, and that was agreed upon with the committee. Everyone agreed.
So the
Pro,
solution,
against.
so the solution that was proposed by Peter McQueen in this residential committee was to make Terrebonne a one-way.
Yes.
That way it would make more space for a bike path.
Yes.
Yeah, and that was and it maintained parking, and that's an acceptable solution to you.
That was an acceptable solution to everyone. Everyone, the cyclist community, the residents, etc. It was accepted. Everyone agreed to that, and it was abandoned.
So if there's any cyclists continuing to listen to this show right now,
we do. We actually have Bettina responding, and Valerie. Unfortunately, in public debates, you're going to get a bit of pushback, but you're doing wonderful, and I appreciate you, and I thank you so much for being here. So you're doing a great job. I just want you to know that.
Yes.
But
yes.
yeah, it's kind of the question is how many incidents is a high enough threshold to pose danger? Kind of the opposite of us, like saying that was from the because like there's pushback from the cyclists saying it's a bad intersection. It's not actually safe. Terrebonne and Girard. And because close calls aren't reported, which arguably a lot of data is not reported, we don't have an accurate amount. So is there like an acceptable, like, is there a threshold in your opinion that would make it too dangerous? Like if there was like 3 incidents this year, would that change your mind about the danger of the bike path?
Yeah, but I really think that the conversation right now is more about.
I mean, that's a good question from the comment.
Yeah, but any death, right? The city right now has a zero tolerance policy or death policy of, related to pedestrian and cyclist deaths. I think that if there's a danger, clearly we want to address it, right? And I think the conversation though is this the best plan right now that works for everybody? And I think that what Valerie has raised is that there was a plan proposed, and I'm just shooting that out there to the general public who are listening to the show, hopefully.
Right.
That what do you think of that plan? Is that an acceptable?
I promise.
Is that an acceptable compromise? I don't know. Like, I'm just throwing that out there because if the residents agree to it, what do the cyclists have to say about that? I'm curious to know. Like,
so what I'm saying is the cyclists, the 2 or so that are commenting, are not. They feel it's one way, but then also we have Ty back in the YouTube comments. At that intersection, there's often pedestrians crossing when they see a red light, so there's mixed opinions on a lot of this, which I think is what makes this really interesting because everyone's perspective is really different. And I really love the fact that people are commenting with opposing viewpoints on. That's kind of the goal we're going for. That means we're winning the our show goal.
I know the Terrebonne and Girard intersection, and from what I remember of that intersection, where it hits Girard, Terrebonne's kind of strange there, right? It's actually one way, is it not? Or am I? Mixing
is it one? It is one way.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird because you hit Girard, you're hitting Girard at an angle, right? And then you got to kind of check if you want to, like, I don't know, like if you want to continue Côte Saint Luc, you go left, I guess.
You go straight.
You don't want to get, you don't want to, but if you go straight, you get tangled. You get tangled in that traffic logjam. You're better off, I think, going left and hitting Côte Saint Luc and taking a right on it if you're interested in doing that. Yes, but the question I ask you is when you get to the intersection of Girard and Terrebonne, where are you going next? Are you going up Côte Saint Luc up to the boulevard? Are you going north? Are you going down
to the
Girard
highway
south? I'm just curious.
You go to Côte Saint Luc, it wraps around Terrebonne up to Côte Saint Luc, you turn right or left. Most people turn right towards DeCarry.
But where are they going with their bikes?
Most people are on the bike, you mean?
Yeah, where are they going?
Oh.
Are they going to the metro, or they're connecting to Cary Expressway to drive down to like
to Girard, I believe. I believe,
Oh,
to
yeah, I think
Girouard.
that's what it was. It was going to connect to the Girouard Bike Path, which then brings you up to the Maisonneuve Bike Path and connects you to the greater bike path network because Girouard is a bike path.
Why would you travel on an angle that's going north, right? You're getting farther and farther away to Maisonneuve. You know, why would you do that? It doesn't make any sense to me.
I mean,
Like, your best bet would be to take
is like
any street
but
traveling
this is for
south,
the people
right?
that want protected bike paths, right? This is for like when you're going with your kids or whatever. Like, because personally, I'm just gonna go on whatever street. You don't have to take the bike path. I'll just ride on the most convenient route, regardless of bike paths, because I'm one of those cyclists.
But from a bicycling infrastructure, I'm just asking and throwing it out there. I'm just trying to understand what it serves. Like,
I mean,
what
it
is
brings you.
what is the end game? I don't get it. I apologize.
Because it
am I
crosses
missing something?
Grand, it crosses Girouard, it crosses a few
Right.
bike paths along the way. It's kind of like because like right now you have Fielding and then you have Maisonneuve and nothing in between, right? So Terrebonne's kind of the in between.
I see. Okay.
And then
Fair
it
enough.
connects you to Girouard, which is a valid connection point that would take you whatever. But then you can also kind of scoot on over to the Fielding or the Queen Mary, whatever, shoot up that way. Like, arguably, it's an interesting place to bring you to go in a few directions.
But if you wanted to go to Queen Mary, right, and you would be on Fielding. Fielding to me is the safest route because you take Fielding
like,
and Fielding crosses over Côte Saint Luc and
depends on like
Isabella.
where you're at though, because like if you're starting like in the middle of NDG, like I live on Fielding, so it makes sense to
Right.
start on Fielding, right?
Yeah.
But like, let's say I lived on like, I don't know, Côte Saint something or whatever, Antoine or whatever the street is that's over there. Not Côte Saint Antoine, but like between like Sherbrooke or whatever, you're in the middle there, and your choices are, okay, I can go to Terrebonne or I can go to Maisonneuve, and you're like, or NDG Street or something. So it's just like a way to shoot over to a safer route.
Yeah, but
And
I live on the intersection of Terrebonne and King Edward. I would never take Terrebonne to travel east. I would always go up to Fielding because I know that Fielding is a safer route in my mind. And you go through Hampstead.
But what if you, then in theory, just the other argument, if you had this protected bike lane Terrebonne route, would that become something different? You know, like that's the argument for
Well, it would be something different if I'm going to St. Monica's, like I'm bringing my kids to school, or I'm accessing some of the institutions on Terrebonne. Maybe that's the rationale. Maybe that's why they want the bike path on Terrebonne, because the city is thinking, okay, we have all these institutions, lots of young children. We want to encourage an active lifestyle, and we know a lot of people are commuting to these institutions every day. So that's where we're going to put the bike path. Maybe that's the mindset.
The parents committees, the board of directors, St. Monica's and Willingdon are against this. The greater majority
doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Then why wouldn't they be for it? I'm confused.
Because the
I'm
reality
sincerely confused.
The reality is parents drop their kids off at school on their way to work, or there's also the school buses that have to park in front of the school because the kids are bussed in at St. Monica's, St. Monica's and Willingdon.
So the city's plan is to modify this behavior and get the parents to stop dropping their kids off at school, and they want them to take their bike. But
there's the school buses as well.
Okay,
you have to take that into consideration because the kids are bussed in.
I understand, but I'm just saying, what's the city's,
you can't, you have to look at the greater good.
What if they add a
majority
drop-off zone? Is like that's something they do on other bike paths. Like they have drop-off zones where you can just park your bus or your car and drop off your kids, and you can interrupt the bike path. Like, what if they do that formally? And make it so that
they haven't announced that. They haven't announced that.
Would something like that be like a step in the right direction to a middle ground? If that's like, if you're stuck with this, would that make it better?
Well, you have to get the kids to school safely. I'm not sure. I'd have to think about it and look it over, and we'd have to have a meeting about it. I can't just off the top of my head answer your question.
I totally respect that.
But as it is now, it doesn't work. The Terrebonne 2.0 bike path plan does not work for our community, and it has to be reworked. It's a flawed study. It wasn't thoroughly completed. It has to be. We need a thorough and bilingual consultation with the population. Mayor Grazia, she claims she consulted with the population. She didn't ring my doorbell. I never got an email. I never got a phone call. Me and many people. So
I have to like not I have to agree with you that I don't have a lot of confidence in and it's not Gracia's fault. I don't have a lot of confidence in Gracia's knowledge of our community, our neighborhood, and it's all
Yes.
it's idiosyncrasies, if I can say that.
Yes.
Because she didn't live here, right? She was brought
Yes.
in. She's a candidate that was brought out of outside the borough, and basically she satisfied these demographic sweet spots for Projet Montréal, and she won, excuse me, the
Yeah.
election by the skin of her teeth, and I think that she is
Yes.
feeling.
So did Despina Sorios, by the way.
Yes, thank you. And she got a lot of pressure by myself and other members in the community because she's voting on borough taxes and doesn't, she's voting on legislation and she doesn't have to suffer the consequences of the tax increases she's imposing on us. Because in the city now, in Montreal, we have city taxes and we have borough taxes. People don't know this, but look at your tax bill; it's there. And it's getting bigger and bigger each year, and it's growing exponentially.
Apparently, she moved back. She did move to Montreal.
Yeah, she moved. So she moved in Mendenji.
She now lives between Terrebonne and Moncton in that part of town. So
yes,
it should be said she listened and moved.
Yes, she did, but that doesn't mean she understands the neighborhood. It takes a while. You have to live here for a while to really appreciate all the we live in a great neighborhood. But also we have,
at least
issues,
she's
right?
now voting on taxes that impact her. So we have to be fair with our criticisms.
No, I'm being fair. I'm not challenging you, but I'm just raising that issue. And what I'm getting away from this podcast is I'm confused. I'm trying to wrap my head around the logic or how it makes sense, and I'm not sold. I'm not. I'm sold that we need bike paths. Okay, hey. I am a bike path guy. I want bike paths. I want our kids to feel safe on the roads when they go to school. I think Valerie feels the same way. I see this in her, and she's expressed that several times. But I'm not getting the warm and fuzzies that this is.
You know what I think the biggest issue is, if I were to take anything main away from this that maybe if politicians do watch this, they could use as an actionable, it's that the public wants to be consulted in a very direct and meaningful way. Frankly, if the public had been consulted and then they were ignored, I honestly think this would be going over way better than the fact that they were not consulted and then ignored. So it just feels like maybe the due diligence on the end, and maybe there does need to be a better investment in monthly surveys, or I don't know what the correct solution is, because I'm not really in the political sphere at the moment doing it, but I have worked with feedback and data gathering, and literally my job was to figure out ways to get feedback on products from people. And when your product is software, it's not always interesting. So trust, I know all about the challenges they're facing. People want to give surveys on products as little as they want to vote. So it's not really an excuse to me for the politicians to say it's hard or people are apathetic. It's kind of on y'all to make this more interesting or to make it easier for people to get engaged. It's 2024. There are free tools you can use to collect data. Free. And I'm sure if you're a government, they have cheap rates for the private security data storage. Even ChatGPT has you could store data privately options now for companies. So it's given that there is tax money and budgeting, if more efforts were put into a communication flow between the citizens and the government, I think that alone would have made this whole process a little bit easier for everybody involved. And that being blindsided is possibly the biggest problem here, is that the community feels like they got hit by the government with no notice of what was happening. Just here's the plan.
Agreed. I think too, it's on us as well, right? We all bear a personal and a collective responsibility for our engagement within the community and engaging in a conversation and having a political conversation. And I think that, and I've expressed this many times before in the show, and I will continue to say this. I think there's a taboo out there about talking about, issues, political issues, and people want to avoid these conversations. Can't avoid these conversations. They're going to impact us, right? Either we talk about it and deal with it, or somebody else is going to talk about it and deal for it for us. And as far as I'm concerned, what happens when other people talk about it, it's not really working for us, right? So, I guess, vote in elections.
Yeah,
when you hear about a meeting or something, or
yes,
get involved, talk to your neighbors, say how, don't just talk about bike paths, talk about the parks, the street cleaning, I think we all need to do bigger effort at talking about issues that impact us on a personal level. Valerie, please go ahead. Go ahead.
I found it, I go to the borough council meetings. You're allowed to ask 3 questions, right, about a certain topic. So the Terrebonne Bike Path, I find at the last few meetings, it's like they're supposed to be random questions, but it's all the pro bike path people that get to ask their questions. And then when I want to ask a question, it's like, oh, sorry, 3 questions have been used up. That's not democratic.
Like you're saying, it's 3 questions in absolute total for the whole session for all the people there. They only accept 3 questions in total.
Yeah.
It's a rule they impose. They say they limit. Say if you have a whole gang that show up, they say, oh, we don't want all the questions to be on, the Terrebonne Bike Path. So they max it and max it. But I agree with Valerie 100%. Like, I'm not in the good books of this current administration. And I go ask questions at council, and they are constantly finding ways to shut me down. They don't want to hear me, right?
They're not in my good books either. They're not in my good books either.
And if you're
and many of us
a supporter of the administration, you're a partisan, whatever, and you're given a lot more latitude. And I've seen this in many different ways. For example, I've been involved for 25 years. There was the whole issue about, the soccer fields and synthetic grass. So Project Morial.
Erwin worked on that. Worked on that.
So yes, he did. And you had all these supporters show up at the council meeting with posters, like billboards. And I'm like, that was banned. I remember many opportunities where I wanted to come into council with billboards and signs of, issues that were important to me and my neighbors. And they said, no, you can't bring billboards into the council chambers. Then boom, grass comes along, and now it's permitted. And it's you see a lot of this, right? And it's unfortunate. I personally think council meetings need to be improved, and I think they what happens, I guess, is that there's this antagonistic relationship that evolves and develops, and that's unfortunate. And, look, we all have to work together for the best of the community. But I personally feel what happens is that our interest, or what we need to talk, gets subjugated to, the central party downtown and what they want and their vision. And we become subjugated to that. And
what if they just made extra city council meetings that are dedicated to issues? Like,
they could, but then will people show up? Will people show up? Like, for example, we have a budget meeting. Nobody, like 2 or 3 people show up to the budget meeting. That's it. It's like, but mind you, they slap it before the council meeting. Don't advertise it. It's like, I've complained about it. I was going to say,
I to this day still, I suppose I could go to some website and Google it proactively, but I feel like somebody from the politician teams could be dropping these things in Thrive NDG and like making some effort.
They could.
Maybe they do, but I don't see
And they could be making some noise too, right? Like they could be on Thrive making noise and saying, hey, we need your ideas. We need to engage you. It's not happening. They shut down. They've got, it's like they're in the,
I
they've circled the wagons.
I understand this 3-question limit thing for the sake of a general city council meeting.
Right.
Having been to that technical bike path meeting, I can see how you would be there for 4 hours on one question, and unfortunately, city council does require it. But it also creates this need for an additional platform for it. I don't know what it could be. Like, my brain is like, create a web forum. I give you answers for days, but again, I don't have no power to change shit all in terms of government because I'm not elected, nor do I have any influence. However, I know how you could reach people better.
You have a voice. You have a voice.
Yeah,
you have a voice.
You do a community,
and we all have to use our voice.
Yes,
okay,
right
there's
here.
a huge voice that I and many of my community members share, and we're not being heard. We're writing letters to our councilmen. We're bringing up issues. We're phone calls. We have a petition. I was supposed to go out and get signatures. It's winter outside. It's slippery. It's this. So we had to come up with an online version. We have a change.org petition because it's the weather is terrible outside. So please sign our change.org petition. It's on our Facebook page, Residents Against Contre Piste Cyclable Terrebonne 2.0. Please sign. We're filtering out if you live in Pittsburgh. We're filtering that out. We're making sure that you haven't signed one of our paper petitions. So we're going to make sure we check with our paper petitions and the change.org petitions that we don't have two signatures. Mayor Grazia at the last council meeting brought up, but there were 1,600 signatures for the bike path in 2020, and she neglects to mention that there were over 1,600 change.org against the bike path in 2020 and 2,000 paper petition signatures. She didn't talk about that. She only talks about the 1,600 for the bike path in 2020. Okay, so I'm sorry. We do not live in a democracy. This is unacceptable. Unacceptable. You're not listening to the other side of the coin. You want it this way. That's what you want. It's not what I want. It's not what thousands of other people I in our community want that are against this project. It's what you want. It's not a democracy whatsoever. Unacceptable.
Valerie.
Man, that was well said.
I want to thank you. You're very kind. I see your passion. I congratulate you. I salute you. I really do. And for getting yourself engaged, for saying what you had to say and have to say. I think you had. No, I'm confused. I'm really like I don't feel like this is really a proposal that has a good community engagement, and
No.
I don't think there's a good buy-in, a general buy-in. So this is what I'm hearing right now, unless I hear something else that changes my mind. But I want to thank you for, first of all, for living in NEG, of course, and for sharing us your story that was very personal in many ways, and I appreciate the openness that you showed us. And I think that I think you had great things to say, and thank you so much. You're so
Thank
kind.
you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Alex and Holden, for having me on the show.
No, it's
Thank
really,
you. And
it's our pleasure.
I do have a question though.
Yes.
Holden, why don't you like pickles?
Oh, I'm happy to answer that question. So I don't like them because they taste bad to me. I mean, that's the honest answer to it. I just don't like how they taste.
Yeah, but you wear it around your neck. And
so
why?
that's a dead pickle. That's a dead pickle. It's
yeah,
not
but
a
he's
live
got arms
pickle.
and legs. How is
But
he
he's
dead?
dead.
He looks.
He's like flopped down like that. It's a dead pickle. Okay, I assure you of it. But what? Anyway, it's a whole brand.
I'm gonna start a petition for pickles. They could get offended, really.
I want. So here's the thing. It's actually a response to the bullying that anti-pickle people get from pro-pickle people. So I know it sounds preposterous, and it is, but it's also like a real campaign in my life. I made a song called I Don't Like Pickle Chips that I freestyled on the internet, and it was a joke. But as I got out into the world and performed it, I realized that people are viscerally passionate on the subject of pickles. You either really love pickles and take it mad personally if people don't, or you really hate pickles.
Like the bike path.
It's actually that polarizing. It's just so silly. But like, for real, people don't get it, but you'll be at McDonald's like, no pickles, and then people will be like, how could you not like pickles, blah blah blah, get your pickles and give them to me, and all this like, yo, I'm in my 30s, I should be allowed to not like pickles in peace. But then with that, when you find out you tap into something, we turn it into a whole merch line. So I sell clothing related to pickle love or hate, or if you're in the middle, as an example, we have this patch available. That's like you can't tell. You either like pickles or you don't like pickles, and you have all your preferences. So it's my two designs kind of split in half, like you're breaking it. So it's like a real wave, but it kind of taps into the similar energy of the bike path issue. It's just a lot sillier than other topics, but anything that can make you money in art, you should pursue. And if it happens to be a hatred of pickles, so be it.
Yes, I agree. If that's your thing, do it for sure.
So I need to add to the closing statement on Valerie that she also has an excellent sense of humor. Thank you very much for that question.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
That was amazing.
Okay.
The timing was perfect.
Before we go, though, I do want to give a big shout out to everybody watching. This is definitely our most popular episode across platforms. We had comments on YouTube, comments on Twitch, comments on Facebook. Thanks to Bettina for being here with us, Adam, Ty over on YouTube, anybody. I'm not going to list you all, but everybody that came through, we appreciate you. So if you're watching this in the future, make sure to come back. Tuesdays, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Obviously, the video is available after because we're streaming it live to YouTube, so it's available right after on YouTube.
Beat every Tuesday, 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
It's like we come every Tuesday.
I'm not promising it's forever and ever. We may miss a beat here and there, but we're going to do it like 50 of the 52 weeks a year or something like that, something crazy.
And maybe if you follow us, you'll actually see the pickle showdown between me and Holden. It'll go down.
That could happen.
Oh,
but
that's going to be really interesting.
Because a whole bunch of you are still here. I need y'all, and this is a favor, to share this with your friends, like anybody in the community.
Please.
This isn't a show that's pro or for anything. Yes, Alex and I have personal politics, but this show is for the community. So as we develop this, the goal is that if you are a business owner, you're a passionate person over a cause, you want to come share your story with us, this is the platform. And we would love to have everybody from every walk of life come through.
Everybody has a story.
Make this something meaningful so that in the future when people go, but how do we know what NDG is? Not what it was, because sometimes I think a lot of people cling to nostalgia, but if we want to understand what it is today, it requires having the platforms. And, you know, there should probably be a French version of this popping off, because let's be real, there should be like efforts. So if you want to make your own versions, let's build up the community.
We'd help you. I'd help people with that.
We can't put it all on Joel. Joel can't be the only guy in NDG doing any kind of work like this. And not to say other people don't, but, you know, Joel's like the only guy that seems to be out there really doing it. But all love to the people that do.
He's the only one covering us. It's not hard to have a favorite when he's the only one.
So make sure, share it with your friends. Let people know the Trainman report is not going anywhere, and that it really is an honest effort to grow the community.
Not going anywhere. Trust me. Thank you.
So like, comment, follow, subscribe, and appreciate everyone for coming through. And live long and prosper, everyone. And then just need 4 more seconds. And boom.